Let me preface this by saying my dad is from Delta State, my mom is from Benue State, I was born in Nigeria and I've lived here my entire life. So believe me when I tell you that Nigerian stigmas don't make any sense. But before that, really quick, how about some trivia? What religion do you think is the most popular in Nigeria? Is it A, the traditional African religion, B, Christianity, or C, Islam? I'm gonna give you guys a bit. If you picked C, you'd be correct! Islam is the largest religion in Nigeria, with some estimates suggesting that over 50% of the country's population is Muslim. Christianity follows not too far behind with 45%, and the traditional African religion is practiced by just 6% of all Nigerians. Today, traditional worshippers face intense discrimination from the Nigerian public. They are labeled as satanic worshippers and their religious customs are viewed as witchcraft. Never mind the fact that a couple hundred years ago, our ancestors would have been native doctors as well, but I digress. While we're still on the topic of religion, despite the fact that Islam is practiced by over 50% of the population, Islamophobia continues to be a rising trend in Nigeria. You'd be surprised how common it is to hear nasty remarks about Muslims while just going through your day-to-day activities. And the rise to prominence of the terrorist group Boko Haram certainly hasn't made things any better on that front. The insufficient coverage of the Farmer Fulani herdsmen conflicts in central Nigeria have also served as fuel to this flame, as the story only seems to get attention when there's a death toll attached to the headlines. So the average Nigerian continues to hear about the rising number of dead farmers at the hands of Fulani herdsmen, and it shouldn't be too surprising what conclusion they come to. The central region of Nigeria where this conflict has been taking place is known as the Middle Belt, and it comprises these 7 states. Climate change, environmental degradation, and the irregular rainfall patterns in the northern region of Nigeria compel these herdsmen, who are mostly members of the Fulani ethnic group, to migrate southward to states like Benue, where the resources are already strained, bringing them into conflict with the farmers. There's also the religious aspect of it, as the Fulani herdsmen are mostly Muslims, while the farming communities in Benue are mostly Christian, adding its own degree of friction to the matter as both sides compete for limited land and water. Despite the fact that this conflict has been a long ongoing issue, it has remained largely ignored for years, with the government focusing on other security crises like the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast, or the demands for secession in parts of the southeast, and the wave of kidnapping for ransom in the northwest. Basically, because of how much the country is in shambles, the issue hasn't been given the sufficient attention that it deserves, and that is why things continue to escalate. And the news headlines don't offer that much nuance to the story and just end up feeding Islamophobia in the southern parts of Nigeria. Another stigma that makes no sense is tribal marks. Like, how are you going to deny me a job for something that I had no control over? Nigeria feels very unfriendly to Nigerians at times, and it doesn't make any sense. I still never understood why in Nigeria, keeping my own natural Nigerian hair was seen as taboo, but I'm getting ahead of 7.
The stigma that comes with being a Nigerian man with long hair is one I've learned to live with. I've been growing out my hair for 5 years now, and I have come across, shall I say, lots of incidents due to the fact that I'm a Nigerian man with a long hair with dreadlocks. In Nigeria, you are expected to have low cuts. As a man, the more you mature, the more you should show that you're matured. And a matured person is someone who keeps a low hair, very low haircuts, as low as possible. The lower the better. But that is what is expected of people who are trying to be decent, people who are trying to, be like everyone else. I see men like me as criminals, as hooligans, as lost souls, because we've chosen to grow out our hair. But to me, it's really not a big deal. People should be able to express themselves however they feel. I've always wanted to have long hair because I grew up with parents who were Nigerians and Christians at the same time. So I always ended up sporting more of skin cuts, low cuts, skin punks. Very boring hairstyle even to me as a kid. And I really just wanted to grow my hair out a little bit longer. I was always happy when my hair grew out. So I started to grow my hair as soon as I could. I have learned to live with the stigma. I don't pay no mind to it anymore. I go out now and the way I see it is, if you're looking at me, you only wish that you could have long hair like this. I'd like to say also that I've met people here who they see you with your hair and then the reaction is quite positive. Like, it's really positive. They're like, wow, your hair is nice. Yeah, so there are actually people like that here. And those are the people I've learned to tune into. There's really nothing wrong in just, loving the hair you were born with and growing it out, styling it whatever way you choose. Everyone is free. You want to do skin cuts? Feel free. Low cut? Feel free. You want to plait your hair? Feel free. You want to perm your hair? Feel free. You want to bleach your hair? feel free. You want to keep dreadlocks, feel free. Free forms. That's the freest hairstyle ever. I'm really positive about the future in terms of hair expression. I can already see the future with very young kids who will be sporting very, very flamboyant hairstyles because the generation that I happen to be a part of, we are very, very keen on flamboyant hairstyles.
In Nigeria, a lot of our culture is very based on religion and superstitions. I'd say at best we are mildly conservative, and as someone who was born left-handed, literally all my life I've had to face so many of these things from people. I do pretty much everything with my left hand, and it's caused so much issues for me, probably with older people. Why can't you use your right hand? Is it me I gave him that money? Blah 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 blah. The most recent one happened when I was trying to take a cab and I already got in. It was just a walk I was taking. I was just like, oh, I don't want to walk anymore. Let me just finish up the trip with entering this cab. Then I got down and I gave the guy the money and he was insulting me. And the older woman there was saying that I should just use my right. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? If he didn't want to take the money, then I drop it and leave. And of course, he took the money, which just goes to show deep down, at least on some level, he knows it doesn't make sense. Because if it was really that big of a deal, he'd leave the money. It's kind of disheartening, especially when I see with younger kids who are left-handed and I can't do anything because they're with their parents and it's their parents doing this to them. Not everybody's lucky enough to have like cool parents like I do. I think that's something that still gets me to this day. It just makes no sense to me because there's so many great left-handed people across history and ambidextrous people as well. So like it's just the hand you use, you know. I mean, obviously it's not as bad as it used to be because they used to kill people for this or like cut off their hands and all these terrible things, but still it's kind of baffling if you think about it.
Recently, someone came or we were having a conversation and the person said, this one that you're wearing leg chains, aren't you worried that if a man sees you, he would have assumptions about you, and because of those assumptions, he won't approach you and you won't necessarily get married? Which was very funny, and I was like, why should that be my focal point of care? That aside, it's just the way that we've imposed some certain things onto the wearing of leg chains or even having piercings or extra piercings on the nose. Nigerians would say, oh, it makes you a prostitute, you're dressed like a prostitute. Leg chains on is actually very funny because then they say that you're a lesbian, right? And it's lesbians that dress like that, right? So like it's very funny because body modifications stems from various parts of the world and it's mostly Africa and the Middle East, and they've been doing it for years and centuries before us. But I think that due to the religious influence, it just became intertwined with culture, and then the beautification meaning was stripped out of it. And then now if you're getting a piercing, it means you're irresponsible. I know of people that have lost jobs or like they get to the final stage of interviews and then they get thrown out basically because they had body piercings. And honestly, some of the beliefs are just silly because I really don't know how persons got attached to things like prostitution. But it's also like an indicator because it makes you understand or it makes you see how society perceives this way of life, right? Or perceives like things like sex work or being a lesbian or being queer, right? It's like these things have markers that are deemed irresponsible, so they're not looked at holistically. They're just looked at, okay, something must be wrong with you, and that's why you're showing that something is wrong with you with what you're wearing on your body.
I feel like we can't talk about stigmas in Nigeria that don't make any sense without talking about queerphobia. Out of all the stigmas in this video, queerphobia is by far the most prominent in Nigeria. Queer identities are so frequently under attack in Nigeria that there is a slang for being outed maliciously. They wear me Kito, referring to the popular Kito sandals in Nigeria. Wearing you Kito in this sense is a metaphor for the violation of your privacy, and Kito has become a term used to describe the entrapment, blackmail, and violence that is often targeted towards LGBTQ+ individuals in Nigeria. Queer Nigerians today face a lot of discrimination and are often the victims of mob justice. Queerphobia is particularly ridiculous in Nigeria because of how foreign it is. Scholars like Oyeronke Oyewumi observed that there was a different engagement with gender in pre-colonial Yoruba society. In these societies, women historically held important and powerful roles. They founded kingdoms, held significant political power, and played a crucial role in the economy. Oyeronke Oyewumi even goes as far as to say that there were no women, defined in strictly gender terms in pre-colonial Yoruba society. So then, where did the idea of queerphobia come from? Queerphobia in Nigeria today is rooted in British colonial legislation and the spread of fundamentalist Christian attitudes by them. These ideas had strict patterns of gendering and included a reality and history of inequality and discrimination. You might be wondering why I started the discussion on queerphobia with women, but that is because the systems that oppress these two groups are the same. Sexism and queerphobia are both attributes of misogyny. They are both forces that maintain rigid gender roles and inequality in society. They both uphold the patriarchy which prioritizes heterosexual men and are both a blatant form of discrimination against an individual on account of what they happen to be born as. Defining the woman begins with establishing the man as the default and then attributing otherness onto the woman and or any other individual that does not conform to this strict genderization. And that is why it is not a surprise that a society as unsafe for queer people has been a divorcee as a major stigma for women, with some women even choosing to remain in physically abusive relationships just so they wouldn't have to get a divorce, unfortunately leading them to their end. Being queerphobic isn't just having a stigma. It's believing that other people don't deserve basic human rights because of their sexual orientation. And if there's a thriving stigma so harsh against queers, how long before there's another one against the next minority group? To give credit where credit is due though, Nigeria has been and continues to be a safe space for albinos in Africa, which sadly I cannot say about other parts of the continent. But that is not enough. We can make it a safe place for even more people. Many of us seem to think that we are powerless. And yeah, maybe on an individual level. But I hope this video has been able to make you see that we are powerful enough to make stigmas that can affect the lives of so many of us. And every time we let the small injustices slide, we are feeding the larger systems that uphold them. The more I look at these stigmas, the more I see them as remnants of colonization and proof that we aren't quite free. But before you become sad, I want you to remember that even though we cannot rewrite what happened to us in the past, we can change how we live in the present. Freedom starts with being able to think for yourself and not letting society do that for you. So be the best Nigerian you can be and don't let anybody tell you what that is or how to do it right. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.